Discover the amazing moment: a surprising hug from a boy transforms a single mom's life forever. The emergency room buzzed with the energy of chaos. Sarah drained the last shred of patience she had after a long shift, her scrub stained with the evidence of her tireless efforts. Phones rang incessantly, and the sharp smell of antiseptic hung in the air like a permanent stain. She swallowed hard, knowing there were two little faces at home relying on her. As a single mom and a dedicated nurse, her life was a tightrope walk between providing for her children and pouring herself into a job that often left her feeling invisible. While providing care, she felt the tendrils of her dreams specifically. Her aspiration of becoming a pediatric nurse slipped ever further from her grasp. Days passed like a blur, filled with school drop-offs, smudged homework, and late-night meals that consisted of little more than microwave meals. Doubt snaked into her thoughts like weeds in a garden she yearned to blossom into a new version of herself, one that could help children heal rather than merely managing crises. That afternoon, in the middle of a particularly hectic moment, laughter pierced through her mental fog. Timmy, a small boy clutching a toy truck, sat nervously in a chair beside his grandfather. The juxtaposition of his innocent laughter with the surrounding tension momentarily lifted her spirits. She turned to watch him, and for the first time that day, allowed herself a smile. Amidst the beeping monitors and frantic activities, a single moment of childlike joy anchored her heart, suddenly reminding her of the simple joys tucked away in the chaos of daily life. As she tended to Timmy's grandfather, fetchingly graying and a bit frail, she couldn't shake the memory of her own children's giggles. There was an undeniable comfort in their joys, something she fought tirelessly to provide. When the treatment concluded, out of nowhere, Timmy darted toward her, wrapping his tiny arms around her waist. That fleeting embrace was more than just the sweet admiration of a child. It was a warmth that radiated through her. In that moment, the burdens she carried felt lighter, and something deep within her flickered back to life. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Yet, as she transitioned from that moment of warmth, the niggling thoughts of practicality sank back in. Could she juggle her current responsibilities with the challenge of taking classes? Would she have time for her kids, homework, and studying? She felt the pressure mounting, the expectations of her family whispering for her to play it safe, to settle into the steadiness of her current position. As she watched her children play, their joyous laughter filled the backyard, and a part of her wanted to join them, to support their dreams without the weight of her unfulfilled aspirations pulling her down. Standing at the epicenter of her own life, the fence between stability and desire rattled ominously. Could she allow herself to chase something that might not only jeopardize her own comfort, but also risk the stability she fought so hard to maintain? The innocent laughter of Timmy echoed in her mind, a reminder that dreams, though temporarily abandoned, could still hold transformative power. But as Sarah confronted the escalating turmoil within her, the question pressed harder than ever: could she find a balance, or would she have to choose between the pursuit of her dreams and the nurturing of her children? The tension surged, leaving her at a precipice, her thoughts racing, pounding against the walls she had built around her heart. The morning sun crept through the thin curtains, casting soft shadows across Sarah's room as her alarm blared incessantly. She opened her eyes slowly, the weight of yesterday's revelations still heavy on her mind. The tender embrace from Timmy lingered like a phantom warmth, contrasting sharply with her habitual routines. She lay in bed, contemplating the inevitable chaos that awaited her, a tight knot forming in her stomach. Taking a deep breath, she pushed herself out from under the covers, forcing herself to encapsulate the motivation behind her passion for nursing. That tiny frame wrapped around her had reignited something dormant within her, a yearning for a life where she could reclaim her ambitions, while loving her children wholeheartedly. It was a delicate balance, but one she felt ready to confront. After hastily preparing breakfast, she gathered her children, Ella and Jake, to the kitchen table. As they munched on cereal, she observed the unrestrained happiness that radiated from them. This radiant energy fueled her resolve. She needed to instill in them the belief that dreams are worth pursuing, even amid uncertainty. "Mommy's thinking of taking classes to be a pediatric nurse," she said. Her voice steady despite the tremor of doubt in her heart. Ella's eyes widened, sparkling with excitement, while Jake gave her a thoughtful nod. Their unwavering support, seemingly so small yet profoundly impactful, sent ripples of hope through Sarah. She could visualize a scenario where her aspirations aligned with her family's well-being, a prospect worth embracing. With newfound determination, she enrolled in an evening class to begin her journey toward pediatric nursing. The first day arrived, and she found herself standing hesitantly outside the classroom door. The faint sound of chatter inside drew her focus. Self-doubt whispered insidiously in her ear. What if she were out of place? What if this fragile dream crumbled under the weight of reality? Her mind raced, punctuated by the laughter of her children, a vivid reminder of why she was pushing through the fear. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door and stepped inside. The warmth of camaraderie enveloped her instantly as the instructor welcomed the group. Within the first few moments of the lecture, Sarah felt an unfamiliar spark igniting within her, a sense of belonging, merged with excitement for this new chapter. As she absorbed the instructor's words, her dedication to the field re-emerged with fervor. Knowledge became her ally, and with each sip of information she took, her dreams felt increasingly tangible. Nevertheless, doubt sometimes clawed at the edges of her newly minted confidence. After class, she returned to her hectic routine, balancing her hesitation with the demands of motherhood. The frazzled evenings, which once consumed her, transformed into moments of precious learning. She categorized her studies around bedtime stories and school projects, each filled with purpose and determination. But as the juggling act progressed, the whirlwind of responsibilities began to weigh heavily on her. The fleeting moments of joy turned into quiet reflections of stress. The compassion she provided for others drained her reserves, leading to feelings of exhaustion that fought against her burgeoning hope. One particularly demanding evening, after a stretch of work-induced fatigue, she settled in her favorite chair, a pile of books stacked in her lap. In that stillness, her eyes closed momentarily. She felt the burden of her ambition collide with her reality once more. What if pursuing her dream further disconnected her from her children? Was it selfish to yearn for something for herself? These questions flooded her reality, casting shadows over the bright vision that had momentarily illuminated her path. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and her children scampered in, bringing with them the chaotic energy that had initially filled her with life. They clambered onto her lap, their laughter pervading the silence of her doubts. Yet, as they draped themselves around her, Sarah realized these moments, the heights and the lows, became the fabric of not only her journey but their shared journey as well. There was something profoundly transformative in allowing herself to chase her own aspirations while mothering fiercely. In the convergence of her dreams and the responsibilities of motherhood, she found herself standing at yet another precipice. As she looked into their eyes, flickers of ambition sparkled back at her, unearthing hidden depths she hadn't realized she possessed. The decision loomed before her now, to chase the dream that had flickered back to life within her, or to succumb to the familiar safety of her existing path. With her heart racing and uncertainty swirling within, she knew the moment had come to face the most profound challenge yet. The moment to confront her deepest fears and embrace the power of her potential. The evening sky dimmed into a cascade of purples and blues as Sarah stood by her kitchen window, her reflection mirroring the tumult of thoughts churning within. The voices of Ella and Jake echoed through the house, but her focus drifted to the looming challenge of balancing her dreams with her responsibilities. It felt like a duality, tearing at her heart, a mother fiercely devoted to her children and a woman yearning for some. With a swift movement, she closed her eyes and inhaled deeply. The smell of freshly baked cookies hung in the air, a reminder of her dedication to create a nurturing home. Yet, the warmth from the oven could not thaw the rising fear pooling in her chest. What if her pursuit of nursing placed additional strain on her family? What if her children felt neglected? The harsh realism of her situation twisted her insides as her mind encountered an assortment of potential scenarios that threatened her hard-won ambitions. "Mom, did you hear the story about the puppy who saved Timothy?" Jake's voice filtered through her reverie, pulling her back momentarily. Sarah opened her eyes, forcing a smile as she turned to face her children who were now gathered at the table, animated with childhood exuberance. The quick transition of emotions was jarring. It highlighted the conflict in her life, the weight of their expectations against her own. "Tell me all about it," she encouraged, settling into the role of an interested mother, but deep inside, she questioned her resolve. The tug-of-war between her dreams and motherhood had started to feel less like a balancing act, and more like a tightrope walk, fraught with hazards of self. As the days peeled away and assignments piled up, the pressure began to cloud her better judgments. The elegance of her aspirations started clashing with the realism of her busy life. Late nights of studying were painted with fatigue, underlined by real moments of joy shared with her kids. And Sarah began to wonder, was the cost of chasing her dream too high? At school, when seated among her peers, Sarah felt like an outsider, despite the encouragement that surrounded her. The others filled the room with confident answers and unwavering presence. How could she compete when she couldn't even maintain a consistent study schedule? Each question posed in class echoed back in her mind. Are you cut out for this? The night before her midterms brought about another sleepless reverie. Surrounded by open books, she fought a different battle inside. Each formula and medical chart wrestled with guilt, dragging her deeper into the doubts that threatened to consume her resolve. Juggling the complexities of nursing alongside the love for her children felt like an insurmountable challenge. There in the silence, she confronted the worst piece of herself, the voice that screamed, "You're not enough." That morning, after a restless night, she faced her kids as they prepared for school. As Ella hugged her tightly, Sarah saw the innocence and trust radiate from her daughter. This single moment felt pivotal, a beacon shining through the fog of indecision. "Mommy is going to study hard today," she said, trying to sound more convincing than she felt. As the bus pulled away, a surge of motivation unfurled in her chest. Clenching her fists, she reframed her mental dialogue, reminding herself of the aspirations that had kindled within. She wasn't just pursuing a career. She was shaping a legacy of resilience. Determinedly, Sarah delved into her studies that evening, thoughts of her children to fold in, unending motivation squeezed beneath the stress. Each page turned became a tiny defiance against the doubts suffocating her. But as she neared the conclusion of her studies, her phone buzzed with an unexpected message. "Hey, I noticed you've been quiet. Want to study together sometime? You're doing great. Don't forget that," it read. It was from one of her classmates, someone she admired. The slip of encouragement stirred something deep within her. Was it a nudge of camaraderie or a simple act of kindness? Either way, she felt a warmth blossom, a reminder that her journey wouldn't have to be a solitary endeavor. With a trembling heart, she pondered the impact of their potential study sessions. Would this lead to newfound energy, the connections she craved? The decision to invite help, to let others in, loomed like the dagger of vulnerability and evolution in the relationship with her ambitions. As she replied with a simple, "Yes. Let's plan a time," the sensation of embarking on an unfamiliar path ignited her spirit. With every passing day, the idea that she could grow into her aspirations, while nurturing her family, solidified into belief deeper and more anchored. But with every new decision, in a world that felt so uncertain, the inherent question remained, as she pulled down the walls. Could she build the relationships necessary to thrive? That became the newest frontier in her journey, and she stood poised on its threshold, contemplative yet eager for what lay ahead. The sunlight poured into the kitchen the next morning as Sarah prepared breakfast, her mind racing with the possibilities that awaited her. Today was the day she would meet with her classmate, Max, for their study session. He had been a bright spot in her week, a gentle reminder that she wasn't alone in her struggle. The warmth of his message echoed through her thoughts, giving her a boost as she flipped pancakes and poured orange juice. Yet, the domestic rhythm of her morning was soon disturbed by a gnawing anxiety. What if she embarrassed herself? What if he realized she was just a mother trying to juggle too much? Each cooking task felt heavy, like the weight of her doubts clinging to her. "Mom, do you think I can invite Emily over after school?" Jake's question pulled her momentarily from her spiral. She looked at him, eyes bright with hope. The innocence in his request tugged at her heartstrings, prompting the inner struggle of a mother wanting to fulfill her child's wishes, yet feeling the pressure mount. "Sure, buddy, we can have a little fun after school," she answered, her voice a mix of reassurance and distraction. As he beamed at her, she felt the tug again, a reminder that her own desires often competed with those of her children. Every joyful moment they shared came with its own backdrop of guilt for her pursuits. Later that morning, as she walked into the library where she was supposed to meet Max, her heart raced. The smell of aged paper and dusty books reminded her of the countless hours she had spent here, often alone. But today felt different. Today held potential. She scanned the room and spotted him, leaning against a table, his expression open and welcoming. "Hey, you made it." He greeted her with a smile that disarmed some of her tension. As they settled into their study session, something unexpected happened. Sharing notes and ideas eased the burden she had been carrying so long. With each explanation, she discovered a talent for simplifying complicated concepts. An unexpected confidence began to bloom. Max's encouraging feedback wrapped around her like a warm hug, reminding her that she was more than just the titles of mother or student. She had a voice, a competence that deserved recognition. The fear clawing at her insides gradually dissolved as she engaged, tapping into areas of knowledge she had once thought unfathomable. However, as the afternoon turned into evening, lingering questions began to resurface. Although she felt lighter in the moment, part of her questioned the feasibility of this new connection. Would she still be a good mother while forging these new alliances? The disparity between her personal and professional realms seemed to expand even wider. After they wrapped up their session, Max said, "You know, we should do this regularly. You're really good at explaining things. It's nice to have a study buddy." His words ignited a flicker of hope and dread simultaneously. The prospect of a reliable ally began to shape her thoughts. However, she felt instantly vulnerable. The idea of being perceived as dependent triggered her fears, the fear of needing someone else, the fear of not being enough. "Yeah, let's make it a regular thing," she responded, masking her uncertainty behind a smile. Driving home, she replayed the day's moments. Those hours of collaboration felt transformative, whispering suggestions of possibility into her heart. Maybe this path ahead was more than just an avenue to academic success, could provide the community she desperately needed. Yet, with the flickering light of hope, came the ominous shadow of doubt. What would happen when the time came to find balance again? As thoughts collided, one question crystallized, pressing heavier than the rest. How would she navigate the evolving dynamics of her relationships? The moment she unlocked the door and stepped into her home, surrounded by the familiar chaos of children's laughter and the scattered remnants of their day, a new revelation hit her. If the bonds she began to form could reshape not just her studies, but her identity as a mother as well, she stood on the brink of an awakening. The ground beneath her feet felt unstable, yet exciting. But as she glanced into her children's eyes, a terrifying thought flickered. Would their needs expand to include not just her presence, but her fulfillment as an individual? As she contemplated that nagging question, she knew one thing for certain: she was traveling a path laden with the potential for transformation, not just for herself but for her entire family. And with that thought lingering in her mind, she held on to the hope that the next chapter of her life might just begin with the surprising twist she had yet to envision. Sarah's footsteps echoed softly in the dim lighting of her living room as she mulled over the weighty question that consumed her thoughts. How would her new relationship with Max fit into the tapestry of her life as a mother? Each decision felt monumental, a balancing act between her distractions and responsibilities, igniting an internal tug-of-war that left her exhausted yet exhilarated. Still absorbing the afterglow of their study session, she slumped onto the couch, her fingers anxiously tapping against the upholstery. A sense of possibility fluttered within her hand. With that flicker of hope, her previous anxieties seemed to retreat. Yet, shadows of doubt lingered. She could not ignore the potential fallout from pursuing her own desires. Was she being selfish for wanting personal growth, or was it an act of necessity for her family? The kids burbled in the background, Jake's laughter punctuating the silence. A small tug of warmth radiated within her. Their joy had always been her first priority. But as she listened, fragments of Max's encouraging words danced in her mind, crystallizing her realization pursuing her studies didn't merely develop her own skills, it could enhance her ability to be a better mother. Perhaps forging connections wasn't an indulgence but a critical evolution necessary for the well-being of them all. With renewed vigor, she found herself planning her next meeting with Max. Digging through her school materials, she uncovered more questions, more topics they could tackle together. A part of her tingled at the thought she would own these discussions, not just with Max but also in her own head. This was more than studying, it was her empowering journey toward self-discovery. Later that night, as she tucked her children into bed, she gazed at their peaceful faces, and a wave of determination washed over her. She couldn't just be a vessel for their dreams. She had dreams of her own that deserved nurture, too. She chose that very moment to embrace the belief that personal fulfillment could coexist with her identity as a mother. The next day, Sarah approached the library, her heart thumping not with anxiety but with excitement. The sight of Max waiting at the table evoked a familiar thrill. Their conversations flowed more easily now, each exchange laden with mutual respect and inspiration. They dove deeper into their studies, sharing hopes and aspirations amid discussions of coursework. As they delved into the subject, Sarah felt the pieces of her identity aligning: the mother, the student, the collaborator, and now, an emerging scholar. Every point Max acknowledged bolstered her confidence, feeding her ambition and illuminating the path forward. Nevertheless, after an invigorating 2 hours, when the books were closed and the notes packed away, uncertainty lurked once more. "It's been great doing this regularly." Max's smile was infectious, but her insecurities seethed. What would he expect of her moving forward? Did he see her as more than a study partner? The thought both excited and unnerved her. "Should we plan for a group study session next week?" Max proposed, jolting her back into the present. The notion of bringing in others sent a fresh wave of doubt spiraling through her. Would they expect more from her? Would she be accepted among her peers? Arguments roiled within her, as though each question was a brick shaping formidable walls around her ambitions. "Sure, that sounds great," she agreed, a practiced smile plastered across her face. But inside, a chilling fear gripped her if she attempted to integrate into a wider circle. Would it expose her vulnerabilities, her inadequacies as both a professional and a mother? Navigating her way through these potentials felt daunting, yet strangely invigorating. Each challenge now appeared less like an obstacle, and more like an opportunity for growth. The journey that lay ahead wouldn't be easy, but the possibility of empowerment made it worth the risk. As she walked back to her car, contemplating the next meeting, the rough edges of her internal struggle began to smooth. But a lingering question surfaced: how much could she stretch her commitments before breaking? Would her resolve shatter under the weight of her new ambitions as she attempted to juggle her parenting duties with her desire to achieve? In this space between hope and uncertainty, Sarah braced herself for the new experiences waiting just around the corner. Feeling more alive than ever, yet teetering on the edge of tension. Would she summon the courage needed to embrace her evolution, or would her fears triumph and hold her back? Those questions lurked like shadows as she turned the key in the ignition, ready to venture into the unknown. And at that moment, she recognized with clarity that transformations often came hand in hand with fear. But the true test awaited her resolution that demanded her confrontation with the doubts that clung to her, threatening to engulf the new light she had begun to cultivate. Every day that passed, Sarah felt the pulsating rhythm of her ambitions clashing with the demands of her home life. It wasn't just the weight of parenting, it was the burgeoning sense of identity that crushed against her lifelong role as a mother. This internal battle grew more complex as she prepared for the upcoming group study session with Max and their classmates. Would she be able to carry her newfound self with confidence in front of others? Processing her thoughts as she folded laundry, Sarah's mind drifted to the potential challenges that lay ahead. The mundane task felt imbued with urgency. Each piece of clothing was a tiny reminder of her responsibilities, her children always tugging at her heart. How could she freely express her thriving intelligence in a group? Did she have the right to pursue learning alongside her parenting? Struggling with these questions, she found herself clutching a t-shirt emblazoned with the slogan her daughter had chosen. In that moment, she could feel her life bifurcating. On one side lay the neat, predictable life as a caregiver. On the other, an electrifying unknown filled with the exhilarating chaos of possibility. A pang of guilt hit her. Was it wrong to prioritize her personal growth when her children still depended so heavily on her? But essential conversations with Max echoed in her ears, a reminder that her evolution could benefit her family in profound ways. Determined to prepare for the group, Sarah scribbled notes, outlining her thoughts and ideas. The words flowed more naturally now. They pulsed with an energy she had previously thought unattainable. She could already envision the day unfolding, the group absorbing new information together, challenging each other's points of view, and discovering knowledge that perhaps had lain dormant within her. Would she allow herself to contribute fully? As the day of the study session arrived, she approached the library's entrance with freshly washed hair and a heart full of mixed emotions. Excitement wrestled with residual doubt that flared like a wildfire. Stepping through the doors, she was hit with the comforting scent of old books and polished wood-on environment that had become a sanctuary for her changing self. Lively chatter filled the air, and Sarah spotted Max, already engaged with a couple of her classmates. He glanced up and smiled at her, and an almost magnetic pull urged her closer. But as she made her way over, a familiar pang of inadequacy settled in her stomach. What if they outshone her in discussion? What if she stumbled over her words? Meeting their eyes, Sarah forced herself to focus on her strengths. She had valuable experiences, perspectives shaped by years of motherhood, obstacles overcome, and tenacity built through her past struggles. Yet the instinct to pull back was overpowering. "Hey everyone," Max greeted as she approached. The warmth of his voice steadied her nerves, momentarily blocking out the doubts creeping back in. They quickly set to work, bouncing ideas off one another like a game of intellectual ping-pong, and for the first time, Sarah felt herself seamlessly weaving in and out of their conversation. As they discussed intricate theories, she realized how much she had to offer. The fear that had once choked her confidence began to dissolve as her passion for the material ignited a fire within her. Ideas connected like constellations, illuminating her understanding and guiding her through the discussion. Each shared insight bolstered her courage, the shadows of her insecurities dissipating in the glow of her participation. But after a particularly animated exchange, one of her peers made a comment that swirled her back into uncertainty. "You seem really passionate about this, Sarah. Why are you even here?" The air thickened, and the weight of the question lingered, turning the moment electric with scrutiny. In that instant, Sarah faced a fork in the road. Would she defend her place at the table, or retreat into her doubts? The challenge loomed large, leaving her teetering between validation and defense. The room blurred, her heart thrumming against her ribs like a drum marking time. "Because I have a voice that deserves to be heard," she found herself saying before her mind could parse the consequences. In that challenge, she traced the contours of her journey with both fear and determination. But beneath that daring assertion lay an undeniable vulnerability that threatened to unravel everything she'd just begun to build. The watchful eyes of her peers pinned her in place, and suddenly, the moment stretched into an eternity. Would she capture this surge of strength, or let it slip away like sand through her fingers? Defining moments like this often held the key to transformation. Sarah glanced at Max, who met her gaze with an encouraging smile, and she felt a flicker of resolve. Could this confrontation with her doubts serve as the flame that truly ignited her path forward? The answer lingered on the brink of possibility, leaving her poised for whatever awaited next. The charged silence hovered in the air, wrapping Sarah in an electric cocoon of uncertainty. Her peers, a mix of curiosity and skepticism, etched across their faces, awaited her response, their gaze both challenging and expectant. She could almost feel the weight of the question settling deeper into her psyche. It acted like a mirror, reflecting not just her aspirations but also every doubt that had ever dared lurk inside her. Beneath the surface of her rising confidence lay a darker current, one that hissed warnings of inadequacy. What if they thought she was an imposter? What if her passion didn't translate to competence? In the throes of her emotional turmoil, Sarah felt a creeping urge to retract her bold statement, to hide behind the facade of a caretaker, reclaiming her spot in the shadows. But as she faced her classmates, A tether to her journey solidified in her mind. This was not just about understanding complex theories. It was about asserting her existence beyond motherhood. Each homework dispute, every late-night worry, had added layers to her identity that couldn't be erased with a single disapproving glance. Pushing the tide of doubt aside, she took a breath, focusing on the moment. I'm here because I want to learn and grow, just like all of you. My experiences as a mom have taught me resilience, strength, and a perspective that perhaps is different but just as valid. Her voice steadied as if infused with newfound confidence. She could feel the initial flicker of uncertainty merging with an empowering warmth. The collective attention didn't feel suffocating. It ignited her boldness. A subtle nod of understanding passed between Max and her, each encouraging glance fortifying her resolve. It was the nudge she needed, allowing her to emerge from her cocoon, resolved not to shrink back. I think that my voice matters, and this, she gestured to the room, to her peers, is an opportunity for me to contribute to the learning experience, not just for myself but for all of us. The atmosphere lightened, a breezy recognition chasing away the earlier scrutiny. Her classmates exchanged glances, and a few even smiled, the initial pressure ebbing away like a tide receding from the shore. The simple act of vulnerability shattered the barrier she had subconsciously built, triggering discussions more profound than she had anticipated. As the study session progressed, Sarah found herself engaging in dialogue with breadth and depth. Her thoughts flowed freely, and with each comment, her peers began to interact with her ideas, creating a back-and-forth rhythm that felt harmonious. The exhilarating feeling of sharing animated insights filled her with unrestrained enthusiasm. She could dissect theories, challenge perspectives, and map out connections with ease. Each contribution carved away at the residual insecurities, revealing a voice she had buried beneath layers of self-doubt. Yet, amid this exhilarating shift, a wary edge lingered at the back of her consciousness. The nagging voice that questioned her right to belong didn't fully vanish. It merely quieted. What if this was just fleeting bravado? What if the doubts returned? Towards the end of the session, as she gathered her materials to leave, Max reached for her shoulder, his touch grounding and assuring. You owned the room today, Sarah. I could see it. You really should consider taking deeper dives into your ideas, maybe even publication one day. The validation sliced through her fear, igniting a hope she dared not entertain moments before. Could her experiences be more than just artifacts of her past? Was the key to forward momentum tucked within her recent assertions? As she left the library, the chapters of her life began to intertwine the beauty of motherhood with the burgeoning identity of an intellectual. In that moment, she realized she wasn't just a mom or a student. She was a dynamic fusion of both, capable of weaving those narratives harmoniously. But as the sun dipped below the horizon and shadows stretched across her path, the complexities of her dual identity loomed over her like a cloud. How would she manage the intricate balance of ambition and motherhood? Sarah knew the next steps weren't going to come easy. A stirring question nudged at her heart, whispering, could she build a future where her aspirations and maternal responsibilities coexisted, or would she be forced to choose? With each step towards her car, Sarah felt buoyed by the day's events. The liberating dialogue with her classmates had opened up new dimensions within her, where once there had been only shadows. The reassurance from Max echoed in her mind, compelling her to reconsider her next move. She could explore an intersection between her past experiences and her current educational pursuits. But how? Driving home, the familiar streets painted a contrast to the storm of thoughts racing in her head. A twisting route through suburban silence housed memories of her busiest day, toddler tantrums, school projects, and late-night homework sessions. Laughter and countless moments of exhaustion blended into a rich tapestry of both chaos and profound joy. But now, as the threshold of a new potential loomed, an unsettling worry formed in the pit of her stomach. How could she allow herself to chase this new chapter while remaining fully present for her children? The delicate balance seemed perilous, as if one wrong shift could send everything crashing down. Each of them depended on her in unique ways. Could she give them the love they deserved while nurturing these nascent dreams? When she finally pulled into the driveway, her children were outside, faces lit with anticipation for their mother's return. In that moment, Any lingering doubts dissipated as she felt the warmth of their embrace envelop her. They were not barriers to her ambitions. They were the very foundation driving her to become more than just a caretaker. But as they chatted about their day, a nagging thought crept back into her consciousness. Just how would she articulate her aspirations to them? Would they understand the complexities she was grappling with? Later that evening, after the boys were tucked in bed, Sarah sank onto the couch, cradling a steaming mug of chamomile tea. The house was quiet, the lull wrapping around her like a soft blanket. She opened her laptop, the screen illuminating the darkened room. As she glanced through her notes, a burning desire kindled within her. It wasn't just about completing her education. She wanted to contribute, perhaps even publish her ideas. But what did she have to say that hadn't already been said? Each keystroke felt overshadowed by the imposing weight of expectation. The pressure intensified. She could almost feel her insecurities start to coil around her like vines, ready to choke off her budding ambitions. Scrolling through scholarly articles and blogs, Sarah was struck by a sudden realization. So many writers shared their journey stories laden with vulnerability that echoed her own. What if she approached her writing the same way? Could she reveal her experiences as a mother navigating education, transcending the surface to delve into the depth of her struggles and insights? In that moment, the contours of her narrative began to take shape. This wasn't merely a personal story. It had the potential to resonate with countless others facing similar obstacles. She envisioned a piece that explored the intersections of motherhood and personal growth, highlighting both the tension and the richness that complexity could offer. But vulnerability was a double-edged sword. How could she risk exposing her raw self to the world? The thought sent prickles of fear through her. What if she faced criticism? What if her peers exchanged judgment bravely behind their screens? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, her heart pounding as she fought those fears. This was her story, her chance to own it. The fleeting bravado she felt that day in the library threatened to slip away, and it became clear she had to make a choice. Would she continue to let fear hold her back, or would she embrace the discomfort and step into her true self? As she began to type, a sense of empowerment washed over her, but just as quickly, another fear surfaced. What if her voice didn't matter? What if she was wrong in believing her experiences could inspire others? With every line she crafted, a newfound resolve ignited within her. She had to find a way to channel her fears into fuel. Just before she hit save, Sarah paused, a question lingering in her mind. Was she ready to confront her fears head-on in an even bigger way? What if she shared her work with her classmates? Her heart raced as she contemplated the next steps. The time had come to face not just her writing, but also their reactions. Would acceptance lead her forward, or would doubt crush her ambitions once more? The following day was drenched in the gentle light of a new morning. But it was Sarah's internal landscape that felt stormy and restless. As she sipped her coffee, staring out the kitchen window, she replayed the previous night in her mind. The words that flowed from her fingers were tinged with both hope and dread. They felt both like a declaration and a whisper of vulnerability. The clock ticked on, pressing her to make a decision she had been postponing. Should she share her writing with her classmates? With a steady flutter of determination, she resolved that today would be a day of action rather than hesitation. She needed to rid herself of the shackles of fear that had held her back for too long. As the day unfolded, Sarah dropped the boys off at school, their noisy chatter echoing in her ears, long after they disappeared behind the school gates. The rest of the morning felt heavy with anticipation. The classroom interactions loomed ahead, but so did the weight of what she planned to reveal. Once settled at her desk, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of being an imposter among her peers. Doubts flickered through her mind, echoing the narrative of inadequacy she had harbored. What if they scoffed at her attempts? What if her experiences were diminished by their judgments? Yet she reminded herself, what she had to share was more than just personal, it was universal. When the class transformed into a discussion about their writing projects, Sarah's palms grew clammy. She listened intently as ideas flowed from her classmates, their enthusiasm igniting an ember inside her. They spoke of narratives that resonated with their beliefs and aspirations, sharing their vulnerabilities without hesitation. If they could embrace such openness, why couldn't she? Finally, she raised her hand, feeling the tremor of fear clawing at her. "I'd like to share my piece," she said, her voice wavering but resolute. It was almost as if the act of speaking those words had pulled the air from her lungs, yet something inside her began to shift. With each word she read aloud, the room dimmed in her awareness, and a spotlight illuminated her vulnerabilities. She wove stories of her journey through motherhood, intertwined with personal growth and education. She strived to be both honest and authentic, to reveal the tapestry of doubt and resilience that characterized her life. As she finished, silence enveloped the space like a thick fog. Sarah's heart raced, anticipation mixing with apprehension as she dared to look up. Would they embrace her narrative, or write her off as just another voice lost in the clutter of uncertainty? A wave of reactions washed over her. Max was the first to break through the moment, his expression painted with empathy. "Wow, Sarah, that was so real." The class erupted in snippets of praise. Each compliment felt like a balm to her fears, erasing the doubt that had shadowed her ambitions. Her heart swelled with a buoyancy she'd long thought unattainable. However, alongside the relief, a different sentiment emerged, an unsettling sense of exposure. Sarah's vulnerability was laid bare. She had shared her soul. What if there were unseen ramifications? Was she prepared for any backlash from those who might not appreciate her openness? As the class wrapped up, a warmth filled the air, yet it was accompanied by a nagging anxiety. The challenge of taking risks had lifted her spirits, igniting something within her, but would it also attract scrutiny or skepticism from others? Back at home, her children were quick to share their day's triumphs, their joy contagious. Yet, the questions of her presentation lingered in her thoughts. How much could she take on? The idea of chasing her dreams while being present for them felt more precarious than ever. That evening, as she settled into her routine, she decided to reflect on the day in the quiet of her journal. Writing it all out held merit. It was not only a method of processing her emotions, but also of solidifying her newfound voice. She once feared how others would perceive her. But perhaps the greatest revelation lay not in their opinions, but rather in her own growth. In the hushed stillness of the night, she penned what was close to her heart, wondering if she was truly ready to face criticism for the honesty she had displayed. Growth required courage, but how far could she push those boundaries before it became uncomfortable? Shortly after entering this hallowed space of thoughts, an unexpected emotion struck her, the longing to seek feedback, to share her journey beyond the classroom walls. What if she took her narrative online? What if she created a platform that resonated with mothers like her, battling similar fears? Under the dim light, her heart raced. The moment had arrived. Was she unwilling to turn back now? A world brimming with possibility lay ahead, and she sensed that the challenge of sharing her voice was just the beginning. What would she discover about herself in this uncharted territory? Would she emerge empowered or lose herself within the vast echoes of feedback? A month had passed since that pivotal presentation, and Sarah had spiraled into an unexpected rhythm of dual existence, aligned with her duties as a mother, while simultaneously exploring the realm of her own aspirations. The journey felt like a triumphant dance. Each step brought new challenges, but the rhythm was invigorating. This evening, she stood in front of her laptop, excitement thrumming through her veins. The digital platform she had crafted, a blog dedicated to the intersection of motherhood and personal growth, was finally ready to go live. It was a space where she could articulate her stories, share her struggles, and celebrate the nuances of her evolving identity, beyond being just a mother or a student. With every click and keystroke, she felt an expansive wave of purpose, lifting her spirits. Her fingers lingered above the keyboard as she prepared to hit publish. A rush of nervous anticipation twisted in her stomach, a remnant of those long-held fears. Would her words land well? Would anyone resonate with her emotional tapestry? The voice of hesitation nudged at her, but she recognized it as part of the journey, an integral component of her transformation. Finally, with a decisive breath, she hit publish, and the digital curtain lifted. As the empty page transformed into a living document, Sarah felt buoyed by a sense of liberation. She had claimed her narrative, a tapestry reflecting her journey woven with threads of ambition, motherhood, and resilience. Days turned into weeks, and the blog flourished, garnering attention from readers who eagerly joined her discussions. Comments rolled in, stories of shared struggles, words of encouragement, and cries of solidarity. Each note became a shared heartbeat, stitching together connections far greater than she had anticipated. The messages were not just affirmations, they were lifelines, affirming the profound impact of vulnerability and openness. Amidst this external validation, Sarah witnessed her own internal transformation. With each story shared, she shed layers of self-doubt and insecurity, revealing a robust confidence that felt foreign yet exhilarating. Where she once hesitated to speak her truth, she now navigated discussions with authenticity and courage. Her journey in the classroom continued unfurling as well. Inspired by her own experiences, Sarah took to sharing insights gleaned from her blog with her classmates, often leading discussions that birthed deeper perspectives. The respect and camaraderie she established with her peers intensified, forging relationships steeped in mutual growth. By the end of the semester, she stood poised to take on her next challenge, a nursing project, to share with her professor and classmates. Unlike before, stepping into this role no longer felt insurmountable. She recognized her voice as integral to the conversations surrounding medicine and parenting, a voice that adeptly intertwined her educational aspirations with her lived experiences. The day of the presentation arrived, and as she spoke passionately about the opportunity to integrate compassion into healthcare, while drawing upon her own parenting experiences, she felt a powerful surge of confidence. The audience was engaged, nodding along as she wove her journey into educational principles. Each applause and encouraging glance ignited a spark, stitching together all her previous journeys into a vibrant mosaic of resolve. When the presentation concluded, her professor approached, pride etched on his features. "Sarah, it's clear you've truly embraced the duality of your identity. Your insights bring a unique value to nursing practice." His words washed over her like a soothing balm, reinforcing the hard-won confidence that had grown so gradually over the past months. She felt seen and validated, not as an afterthought but as a beacon radiating competency and compassion. As she navigated her way home, surrounded by the comforting chaos of her children's laughter, she reflected on how far she had come. The hesitation, the weight of doubt, and the fear of vulnerability were remnants of a journey now transformed, rather than burdens. She had cultivated an identity that encompassed motherhood, pursuit of education, and personal narratives, a powerful trinity of accomplishment. That evening, as she tucked her children into bed, she leaned over, planting kisses on their foreheads. In their sleepy smiles, she saw her commitment manifest, a promise that she could be both an empathetic mother and a tenacious learner. Each journey they embarked upon together wasn't one without its obstacles. Rather, it was a complex pathway where growth and fulfillment intertwined. In that tranquil moment, she felt an abiding peace flooding her heart. The balance she had fought so hard to establish was no longer a tightrope walk, rather, it was a robust tapestry woven from her experiences, aspirations, and indomitable spirit. From a single hug, igniting her dreams, to a confident mother supporting herself and her children through bold actions, Sarah celebrated her transformation. Her story resonated beyond her own life. It became a testament to the strength of individual ambition and the profound impact that embracing one's journey can have on the world around them. And just like that, Sarah had achieved not only personal fulfillment, but had also reached a point of profound solidity and self-acceptance. Now, armed with passion and validated purpose, she stood ready to conquer not just the challenges that lay ahead, but also to champion her own narrative for all those who dared to pursue their dreams alongside the intricate tapestries of their lives. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe. Now this is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.